Well, hello and welcome to Talk Time. This week we're going to be looking at issues of food security, the National Buffer Stock Company, and so many other issues. Welcome to Talk Time.
Hey, Bukuya. The thing on all the pressure to me to start. What song come from? Come, you said the people na ya na ka o yare go. They said when you Joe one, what to ha wusu ni.
Ma nya osanka between me kaba.
Ma.
We yare na menya anu aduro. Nti na ma me to nkra fra o se bra no.
Eh na be say fen ya go. Pese wa ma me ye ma hye me.
Ko fichira. Wa yase na ya na ye o yam.
Well, hello and welcome back to Talk Time. This week we are looking at issues of national food security. And we're going to be looking in that context at the National Buffer Stock Company. And it is my privilege to introduce our guest for today, Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, Chief Executive Officer of the National Buffer Stock Company. So you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Uncle. Great.
Now, when we talk about the National Buffer Stock Company, what are we talking about? What functions are we talking about?
Okay.
What is the vision? What is the National Buffer Stock Company?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers. The National Food Buffer Stock Company is a limited liability company that is established to be in charge of food security. It is a non-solvented institution with a number of mandates. Key amongst them is to guarantee farmers with market by coming out with a minimum guarantee price, which is a price more than the cost of production of the farmer. We are also to provide storage facilities in order to reduce post-harvest losses. We are also to keep government emergency food security reserves and also do price stabilization. What it means is that when there is, at the beginning of every harvesting season, we go in to buy the excess grains from farmers that farmers would find it very difficult to market. So once that is done, we buy as much as is in the system into our various designated warehouses, so that in times where prices are high in the system, we are mandated to release the stocks we have in order to stabilize the prices. So these are the key mandate of the National Food Buffer Stock Company.
You said that it's a non-solvented organization. Yes. What does that mean?
Okay. What it means is that apart from what we are keeping for government emergency food security reserve, any other activity of the Buffer Stock Company is to make profit. So we go to the commercial market and borrow. For example, we are responsible for the feeding component of the Free Senior High School, and then some other government institutions, because there was a cabinet directive that when the Planting for Food and Jobs program was launched, that government institutions like Ministry of Health, where we have government hospitals, Ministry of Interior, where we have Ghana Police Service, Ghana Prison Service, Ministry of where we have Ministry of Defense, where we have Ghana Armed Forces, and some other government institutions are mandated to pick or transact business with the Buffer Stock Company. So with the aspect of the National Food Security Reserve, government makes allocation because it's a national security matter. That one we buy and then we keep for government, awaiting any further instructions from the appropriate quarters on how these things can be done. For example, NADMO, we are also supporting NADMO in terms of when there's a disaster. So that is what I mean by that. But apart from that, most of our activities is commercial. Most of our activities is commercial.
Can you make enough money to sustain yourself? I mean, pay staff salaries, you know, the infrastructure you need and so on. Yeah. Can you make enough money to sustain yourself?
Thanks for the directive. When I took over the office, buffer stock was only visible in 3 regions, the Ashanti region, the Brong-Ahafo region, and the northern region. But today, with the introduction of the Planting for Food and Jobs, we have seen some significant expansion in our operations. Today, we are still using the old 10 regions. We have regional managers in all these regions, and with the introduction of the free senior high school program and having been responsible for the feeding component, we have been able to make some profit to pay salaries, and I've also hired a lot of people in terms of quality control, because prior to at the initial stage of the free senior high school, that's September 2017, there have been some challenges of lack of staff to monitor the activities of the supplies. But today we have enough staff that are all over to monitor the activities of the supplies. We have the MOU with Ministry of Education to supply them. There's a framework agreement to supply them with a certain quantity of food items, 18 number food items for the academic year. So as part of effort to create more jobs for people, we have also decided to give licenses to our suppliers. We operate in 2 folds. We have the license buying companies and the license suppliers. The license buying companies are those that buy from farmers on our behalf into our warehouse. The license suppliers are those that pick from our warehouses and also buy from wholesalers in terms of the imported food items to supply on our behalf. So they are, let me see, taking the risk of going to the commercial market to borrow money and to supply on our behalf. So they make a lot of the profit, but of course, since we are not committing that much into it, we are also able to make some significant amount in terms of some percentage that we charge them for processing and monitoring. That is able to sustain us. So far so good, and we have been able to also, when I took over, there have been some huge debt with NIB as a result of some importation of maize that was done in 2015. NIB came, we sat with my board, we had a discussion, and a payment plan was arranged, and we have been able to pay 80% of the debt as a result of the profit we are making from these activities with government institutions like the Free Senior High School and the school feeding program under Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection.
Is there not danger that because you are not subvented, you would focus attention on how to make profit more than how to deal with the security aspects of your work?
Okay. So it's in 2 forms. I understand where you are coming from. When you look at it, government makes some commitment at the beginning of every harvesting season that buy the excess grains. And then also, we are not in a competition with any buyer, because we believe that farmers should be able to, sell at a price where they will not lose. So we will only set up the minimum guarantee price based on the crop budget analysis of that particular farming year. So we factor in cost of production and the items that are involved in the production of an acre of maize, rice, and other, farm produce. And in the committee, there's a post-harvest committee. In the committee, we have a farmer representation, we have the license buying company representation, and we have other experts, including buffer stock, who will sit on the committee to come out with this. So we also factor in interest on loans, assuming the farmer would have to go and borrow money to do, 1 or 2 or pay for some labor. We factor in that, and then the profit of the farmer. So we make it known by publishing it and getting copies to our regional directors of agriculture, to the district, and to the AEs who are dealing directly with the farmers. So the farmers are very much aware of, let me say, the floor price before any buyer comes. So in the situation where the farmer is not able to get buyers that will come and give them either the minimum guarantee price or more than that, then government comes in and then give them the minimum guarantee price and then buy. So a certain percentage of what we buy is kept as national food security reserve. In that, government is committing money into that. But the rest of the items that we are getting into our warehouses, we take commercial loans from overdraft from ADB. That is what we use to supply to government institutions, and making sure that payments are made promptly in such a way that we will not be paying more interest on the facility we have taken. So government has serious interest in what we are keeping for him as national food security reserves. So in that case, there, like I said, there are two forms. One, there is a serious attention to what we are keeping as national food security reserve, and then also there is also an attention to what we are, the commercial aspect of it, what we are supplying to government institutions and to the general public to make profit and sustain the institution.
Is there any substantial difference between what you're doing and what the Food Distribution Corporation or company was supposed to do in the past?
There is no significant difference, except that, in fact, we are metamorphosing into the defunct food distribution. When you even look at it currently, when we started, we are using their facility because before we came into power, there had been directive by then late Professor Mills that all the Food Distribution Corporation property should be handed over to the buffer stock company through the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. So we went round to assess the facility. Most of them have been diversified. The few ones that are still there, we are taking inventory of them to see how we can. There are a number of silos that are dotted around the country. I have visited almost all of them, and all that we need to do is to find some money and fix the motors, the conveyor, and temperature sensors and moisture meters in the silos. Then they will become usable again, and some of them there have been huge encroachment. So what we have to do probably maybe is to relocate them, and the relocation reason is because when you look at the reason that they were cited during Achampon's time, that reason may differ from the current prevailing situation. So maybe the location is not suitable for as a strategic location. So some of them we are making arrangements to move them to areas where they produce a lot, because some of them were at a place where they produce cocoa and other like share nut. So we are making arrangements to rehabilitate this. So we are getting back into the food distribution concept. What it means is that once we are able to get all these warehouses, apart from the one warehouse that we are building of 1,000 metric tons capacity, which is just for the institutional transaction, they are also strategically located in such a way that they can serve government institutions in the district, like the hospitals, government hospitals, Ghana Prison Service, and the secondary schools. So it is within an area where it's easy to access. Apart from that, we are trying to also put in a number of warehouses, a regional food security reserve depot, where we can have a full complement of the food distribution concept, where we have various food items in the warehouses that farmers, citizens can access, can come and place orders, and there will be delivery. It's a well-arranged package that we are working towards. But first of all, we have to make sure that every district, especially districts that have no warehouses, we are able to put a minimum of 1,000 metric tons capacity, so that it can serve the purpose of feeding our wards and then government institutions. And I must also commend the CHAS for helping us with the introduction of the Made in Ghana food into the second cycle institutions. In 2017, it was a serious headache, because you take Ghana rice to some schools and the students are not familiar with it. And we are very happy that we are able to change the taste and preference. You go to Prempeh College with a perfume rice, imported rice, they will turn it down. Even Labone Secondary here, when you take any imported rice, no, they will turn it down, because the students have developed the taste for the made in Ghana rice, and other prestigious schools like Adisadel College and Fancy Pim and Fancy Ma, and all of, they are all embracing. So currently we are supplying 100% made in Ghana rice to our second cycle institutions. We are supplying made in Ghana maize to our second cycle institution and the school feeding program. So the food distribution concept is, we are getting there. It is the right way to go. We are actually getting there, so that we can bring back the concept and then get some other innovations to give it a facelift.
You mentioned the silos which were built in the Champon era.
Yeah.
Now, what about the silos which were built in the Nkrumah era? Those huge, tall silos, are they still serviceable?
Yes. When you look at it, when you look at Tema, I think Community 1 around the Mangwazi roundabout, you see those are the concrete silos. And there's another one to Atakradi. The one at Takrady has been hugely encroached, and those ones we have actually asked people to do a structural integrity report, because since they are concrete, to see whether they are fit for the purpose. So we are going to look at that. Once it's done, that would be fantastic, because we can use them for long-term storage, especially the National Food Security Reserve, where you can't just put them there. But for the warehouses, we can use those ones for the transactions, where a bag to a bag. But for the silos, both concrete and metallic silos, those ones, once we are able to get a report that clears that yes, they are good to go, then we will do a lot of stocking for the National Food Security Reserve, especially regions where there's no point to build the regional food security depots. Those ones can be used in those regions because they are huge and they are fit for purpose once the structural integrity report says so.
Well, viewers, we are talking to Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Buffer Stock Company. We are talking largely about food security, and we are talking about his company and what it is doing. We're going to go for a short break. When we come back, I'd like to find out what kinds of food are they holding in stock. Short break.
It's incredible! Bang on target!
Hello and welcome back to Talk Time, and we are in conversation with Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Buffer Stock Company. And as I indicated, we're talking about food security, we're talking about his company, and we're talking about making sure that we keep feeding ourselves and feeding ourselves from local sources. Now, sir, what kind of food do you stock?
So currently we are keeping greens. That is what we can keep now to keep the shelf life. Plants are far advanced in the processing, especially fruits and vegetables. But we have been handed over a number of pack houses. I think there are about 4 or 5 pack houses that are in the north. The pack houses are for fruits and vegetables by the just ended project NRGP. NRGP is a Northern Rural Growth Program. It's a project under the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. I think that started somewhere in 2010 they're about in Tamale. The headquarters is in Tamale. So the program has ended, and they have handed over their warehouses, including the pack houses, to us. So currently we are keeping only grains, as in maize, rice, millet, soya bean, peanut, and cowpea. For the fruits and vegetables, we are having discussions with the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, because they have also been approached by a number of interested persons to go into vegetable export, so that we can hand over the pack houses to them. And then I've also proposed to the Minister for Food and Agriculture and the Minister for Special Development Initiative that the phase 2 of the one district, one warehouse that we are coming to do, let's factor areas that they produce a lot of vegetables and fruits. Instead of giving them a warehouse, we can give them the pack houses, so that, because the pack houses, these are storage facilities that can also keep the shelf life of the fruits and vegetables before export. So currently that is what we are doing. We are actually developing, and we are making sure that we are also working with the one district, one factory initiative to, for example, tomatoes. Here we produce it seasonal. We'll get to a situation here in Ghana where we produce a lot and we have a lot of wastage, or most of them going bad. Then in another season, there will be non-availability of tomatoes, and we have to go to Burkina Faso and then bring it. All this as a result of lack of processing facilities. I've read, I think, last 2 weeks of a processing facility for tomatoes in Brekum that is about 80% complete. And then, of course, the Palugu tomato factory, which is also in the process of being rehabilitated, and most especially because now the multi-purpose dam have been they have cut sword for the construction of multi-purpose dam. What it means is that, looking at the upper east region and the northeast region, they would have the opportunity to benefit more from the dam based on the land development that is going to be extended to their territory, so they can do a lot of farming all year round. That will be, what it means is that they will never rely on rain-fed agriculture. So currently, that is what we are. We are specialized now in the grains because of lack of the processing facilities, which, like I said, we are also in the process of making sure that those ones are also, put in place, so that we can have a full complement of the planting for food and jobs. Even though we are producing, there's a vegetable aspect of it, but what we are doing is that we are creating market for them by introducing the second cycle institutions to them, so that on a daily basis they can be procuring their fruits and vegetables from the farmers. So a certain percentage of the feeding component is sent back to the schools, so the schools will procure the perishables on a daily basis.
Would this entail you're moving directly into processing or semi-processing?
We are well stationed to buy and supply raw material, so we will not go into the processing. What we will do is that we will also develop a relationship with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, where the one district, one warehouses that are coming up, we will concentrate in aggregating raw materials to feed those industries.
But don't you think that the processing is key to keeping a meaningful national buffer stock?
Yes.
Because without processing tomatoes, for example, you can't.
Exactly. Exactly. So what we are also thinking of doing is that once we supply them with the raw materials, we can take the processed ones. Like I said, we are going into the food distribution corporation concept. So once we give them the raw materials, in return, we will take the process and then stock it, and then do onward distribution to our institutions and to the general public, and to keep some for government emergency food security reserve.
Now, recently there have been reports that some rice farmers in the north have not been able to market their produce, and there's a lot of rice at the farm gate.
Yeah.
Are you aware of this difficulty?
Yes. When the news broke, immediately the following day, I organized my team and we went from BC, to be precise. When we went there, on one aspect of the story, we were excited that there was a glut. Another aspect too, we are not so happy that there's no market. So the aspect that we are happy is that we are seeing the dividend of the planting for food and jobs, because we have introduced improved seeds. Farmers are no longer using the traditional seeds. They are using improved seed. That means that there's going to be improved yield. And farmers themselves were overwhelmed. They were taken by surprise because based on the analysis, previous year's analysis that they have been getting from an acre, it's almost double. So that has caused a glut. So immediately what we did was that we went there with our license buying companies who are well resourced, and immediately they bought all the paddy and then process it for the institutions. And their major off-taker was Avnash, the Indian company that has a huge rice mill on the Nyangpala roads in the northern region. And Avnash's challenge was that they are not able to also market their finished products. So immediately what we did was that we issued them a license and gave them a number of institutions within the 3 northern regions for them to supply. So immediately they also went in to buy the paddy rice to continue the milling. Yeah.
But from what I'm hearing, it does not appear that the glut simply explains what is happening. We've spoken to farmers who have said that they sent their rice to the rice mill and they had to take it from the farm gate to the rice mill themselves. And the rice was rejected and they had to bring it back at extra cost. So they're saying that it's cost. It's a question of cost. And also a question of a certain lack of standardization. Yeah. I mean, the rice mill has its own standards and so on.
Yeah. So we have the Ghana Commodity Exchange also in place, and their core function, number one core function, is to link sellers and buyers together, and also do a standardization, and also the warehouse receipt system, where farmers have the option to bring their paddy rice and keep and take a receipt that would warrant them or give them access to financial assistance to go ahead to produce for the coming season and come back and sell when prices in the market are good for them. So yes, I agree with you that issues of standardization, because some of the mills or the buyers, they have their own standard that they prefer farmers to produce and then sell to them. But with us, we come in and buy, and we are also saving the farmers the stress of bringing their farm produce to the marketing center, because our license buying companies are not supposed to sit in the urban centers and ask farmers to bring, because we are paying them the license buying companies fee. That includes their handling charges. So they are supposed to get to the farmers and pick their produce at the farm gate, clean it up, rebag, and supply into our designated warehouses or wherever we are asking them to take it. And a lot of we need to do a lot of education on our farmers in terms of the period at which is ideal for harvesting, because most of the mills usually there's a certain moisture content that when you harvest, it can go through a straight mill, then you come out with a white rice. But once it is dry, once the paddy rice is dry, you have no option than to parboil it in order to reduce the broken percentage. Other than that, when you mill it, you record a whole breakages, and that would not, you cannot even come out with even grade 3. But once you harvest at the right moisture content, you will be able to come out with grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and then some other grades that may be used for poultry and or animal feed. So we are doing that. And also another issue that sometimes causes delay in harvesting is as a result of the combine harvesters. So we have decided to, you know, give life back to the agricultural mechanization service centers, where farmers can access equipment at the right time for them to harvest their produce. So we have also had a number of license buying companies that have actually called farmers and asked them to meet them somewhere and bring their produce, which is unacceptable. So we have revoked a number of licenses of them because it's against the agreement we signed between them. They are supposed to reach out to the farmers. We are saving the farmers the stress of bringing his food items to the marketing centers, and if there's nobody to buy, they are left with the mercy at the mercy of the weather. Yeah.
Now, one of the problems which has affected grains, especially the storage of grains, has been post-harvest losses. Has that made an impact on your operations? And to what extent has that impact been?
Okay, so post-harvest losses, first of all,
for example, infestations by weevils and so on.
Exactly. So first of all, we have field pests that may even migrate from the field to the warehouse. So what we are advising, first of all, is farm hygiene. Farm hygiene is very prime here. And then also, our license buying companies are supposed to be very well sophisticated, having their own quality control officers, so that, because they are to go and buy the raw food from the farmers at the farm gate. So in that case, you find some chaff, some straw, some stones, weevils and all this. So they are supposed to clean them and then re-bag them into buffer stock or planting for food and jobs sacks and supply to our various warehouses. So once we have issued the licenses, we will quickly go and do fumigation of our warehouses before. That includes the warehouse itself, the pallets, and any other material, disinfect the whole area. So when the trucks even come, we have to even disinfect the trucks before we start offloading into our warehouses. Then there will be some periodic fumigation of the grains. And what can also make the grains to free of infestation is the storage in the silos, where oxygen is denied, or the pro-cocoons, where you take out oxygen. So if there's any other living organism, we will not survive because of lack of oxygen. So for the warehouses, we are using them for our commercial activities, where you are not going to keep it for more than 2-3 months. The schools are calling for their food, the hospitals are calling, school feeding caterers are calling, then you supply them. So we have been able to reduce the incident of infestation into our warehouses based on these measures that we have put in place. But what we eradicated completely, like I said, is the farm hygiene and having enough education from land preparation to harvesting and to storage. Then also storing into silos or pro-cocoons.
Have you considered radiation as an option? Because the Atomic Energy Commission has developed radiation as an option.
Yeah, I think it's something we can consider and then look at it. Because at the end of the day, if government is committing a lot of money to buy and there's wastage, infestation, that is going to reduce the quantity and even the nutritional value of what will be supplying to the public or the institutions. Yeah. So we'll look at that.
Okay. Have you made any losses as a result of infestation?
Yes, in 2017 harvesting, we did some. It's not that significant because at a point in time we have to do a rebagging of all that we have in our Tamale and Yendi warehouses. So we have lost some number of bags. In fact, it was timely, because if we had not done that, we would have lost everything. So, but apart from that, we have taken measures to make sure that the losses, you cannot, as a food security company or a buffer company, you cannot run away from it completely. You cannot run away from completely, but what we have to do is to minimize it as much as possible. But so far, so good. Our quality control officers are doing a fantastic job, because we also reject some unhealthy or contaminated grains that our license buying companies bring to our warehouse. Yeah. Because they are supposed to know better, because they are also supposed to have their own setup to make sure that whatever they are picking from farmers go through thorough cleaning and drying. For example, the maize, sometimes farmers harvest it when the moisture contents are high. That is not ideal for storage. So the license buying companies are supposed to take it to the drying centers, clean it, and then dry it to the required moisture content suitable for storage.
Well, viewers, we are talking to Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Buffer Stock Company. And we are talking to him about the company. We are talking to him about issues with regards to food sovereignty and so on. We're going to take a short break, very short break, and when we come back, we'd like to explore other areas. We'd like to look into the future, peep into the future, and see what the National Buffer Stock Company can contribute to ensuring food sovereignty in Ghana. Short break.
Hello?
Oh, sound.
Okay, why? My wife comes and send a message. Your face is almost free. Hello? What's happened?
It's a child who's will be a quiet say what? I dare say,
Miss Side friend, I'm so young. My wife is not testing messages here. And our office so I'm trying to tell man. She says, I
mean, so we a guy man, and may young who could look cry. And also wants a family drilling company limited for Ghana.
What's it then? Family Dwelling Company Limited.
Ye two borehole, biofuel, biogas, swimming pool, plumbing works in Naso, ye be, Frey 0240-333-111, and NASA 0244-144-822.
Miampa and you want swimming pool on me fee. Me want to, you be BA. Family Dwelling now, Family Dwelling. Me out with that.
Hello, welcome back to Talk Time, and we are talking to Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Buffer Stock Company. National Buffer Stock Company. You're talking about his company, talking about food sovereignty, and so on. Now, sir, can you talk about your stock levels?
Okay, so what I can say is that we have enough stocks for the government institutions. We also have enough stocks for government food security reserves. With the government food security reserves, what I can say is that we have enough. But to talk about figures, that would go against national food security, because at this point in time, the food is our arsenal, and it's become a national food security situation. And we have enough that we are keeping on behalf of government into our various warehouses. But for the government institutions, our business with them, we also have enough stocks that we are supplying. In fact, we have already made an arrangement to supply to the first and second year students of the Free Senior High School when the lockdown, the closures of the schools, set in. So we have enough stocks. And if you can also, I think the day before yesterday, we also did a donation to the Ghana prisons. In fact, Ghana Education Service, because it has become their property since we have supplied into to their schools. So we have called back items that would be expiring before September to be given to the Ghana prison service, in order not to allow the food items to remain in the schools and get spoiled. So we have enough for the National Food Security Reserve. Thanks to the Planting for Food and Jobs, we have been able to store enough. But what we do is that, for example, 2017 means that is meant for, that we are keeping for the National Food Security Reserves. In 2018, we draw it back and then supply to the institutions, and then the new harvest, in order to reduce, infestation, level of infestation. Yeah.
Will your outfit be able to, deal with the impact of COVID-19 on the food supply situation and also pricing and so on?
Yeah. So when during the lockdown, we're asked to bring out our strategy. So we have the immediate short-term, medium, and then long-term strategy in terms of food security to the COVID-19. So the short-term was for us to partner with the faith-based organizations to distribute, to define a food basket and to distribute dry food to the vulnerables. So we did that, almost about 500,000 packages of dry food that was distributed to the vulnerables through the faith-based organization, because these are organizations that we see them as credible, and also to take out the political aspect of it. And it's been very successful. So we have the long-term measures that we have enough stocks that when the need arises, will be asked to release into the system. But for now, last 2 weeks, the Minister for Food and Agriculture went on a tour in the southern sector, because land preparation and planting have started in some parts of the southern sector. So he went around to see the effect of the COVID-19 to their agricultural production, also to assure them that they should adhere to the social distancing protocol in their farming activities. And thanks to the mechanized service centers, what it means is that we don't need more people on the farm, because the agricultural machineries are there to do the work. So productions in the south, production is ongoing, and in the next 1.5 months, production also begin in the north, except currently those who have the opportunity to be around the river banks and also the one village, one dam are able to do some production now, as we speak now, in the north. So we are actually going to increase our production and the number of farmers on the program, so that we can get more yield, and out of that we'll be able to buy and then stock.
There are some industries which should be naturally connected with your operations. For example, you use jute bags. And we've been told that there's a capacity for producing jute bags in the country. Has that been explored?
Okay, because when you look at it, every farm produce that comes from the farms to the licensed buying companies come in jute bags. But the ones that comes into our warehouses comes in the poly sacks. So if there is such company that has the capacity, and I'm sure not just the food, I'm sure even cocoa, they use the jute sacks for their storage. We are very willing to engage with them, because our licensed buying companies, the jute sacks is part of their tool of work, because that is what they supply to farmers, and farmers bag their farm produce to them. And it's also reusable. It can also stay for a longer period, and and it's easy to handle too.
Yeah, but what about you initiating moves to get jute bags produced locally?
Okay, so it is something that that can be looked at or considered. Just as we produce, we support some local factories here to produce poly sacks that are labeled planting for food and jobs and buffer stock. I think we can also do that and then have them in stock, so that we will direct our licensed buying companies to procure from them. So it's something that we'll look at it.
And save us some foreign exchange.
Exactly.
And so on.
Import substitution.
Well, viewers, we are talking to Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Buffer Stock Company. And we're going to go on a very short break, and when we come back, we will conclude our conversation with questions on the quality of food. Short break.
It's incredible! Bang on target!
Well, welcome back to Talk Time. We are talking to Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, Chief Executive Officer of the National Food Buffer Stock Company. Sir, what about the quality of food that is being stocked? And there's been some controversy, for example, about food that is genetically engineered, GMOs and so on. So what is the quality of the food we're keeping in stock?
Okay, so quality has become an issue that, if care is not taken, can ruin the entire effort that we are putting to keep national food security reserves and also to save government institutions. So on the back of that, we have hired a very competent person to be Director Food Safety, making sure that samples of food that are stored are taken to the laboratory to look at, for example, maize, aflatoxins, and all those things, to make sure that they are safe for consumption. So this is something that we are doing, and quality control officers have also been going through a series of training, not just a physical assessment of the grain, or the grain is beautiful, but go deeper to ascertain what is entailed in the grain, but not the physical appearance of the grain. So in fact, it is one of the biggest and strongest department of the buffer stock company, food buffer stock company. So it is something that we are very keen about, especially with the ones that goes to the second cycle institutions or the school feeding program. These are food items that when you don't subject them into proper scrutiny, is going to cause a lot of problem, because matrons will go ahead and then prepare the food, and when there is a food poisoning, it's not going to be good for any one of us. So we have been very keen about that, especially even matrons. There have been some training or workshops, because quality control is a shared responsibility between the supplier and the consumer. So we are all on the same table to look at some of these things, not just about the physical quality of it, but also the nutritional quality of what we are supplying to our institutions. So we have a very strong and a solid team that is responsible for that. So,
specifically, do you have a policy on GMOs?
No, as buffer stock.
Shouldn't we have?
Yes, this will be a ministerial, and I'm sure, I think my minister have made a number of deliberations and comment about the GMO, and I think it's something that is worth considering, looking at how the planting for food and job is expanding, and we keep on introducing new crops into the program. So it's worth considering so that we will have answers, solutions to everything that comes to our table.
So thank you very much for coming to our studios in Pan-African Television. We thank you very, very, very much.
All right. Okay, thank you too.
Now, viewers, we have been in conversation with Alhaji Hannan Abdul-Wahab, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Food Buffer Stock Company. I have learnt a lot, and we do hope that all of us have learnt a few things, from this conversation. We're going to say goodbye to you, but we also like to remind you that the best in everything is on Pan-African Television, your #1 station that brings you the best in sports, best in current affairs, best in news, best in entertainment, and best in everything. Stay with us, stay with Pan-African Television until we meet again next week. It's goodbye from all of us, especially from the director of the show, Adam Lumo. Bye-bye.